Everybody says they hate to say I told you so. Everybody says that. But in reality, people love to say I told you so. So we're going to go back in time and talk about some things that came up on this channel about future decisions. It has to do with interest rates. For months, going back really last year, we've talked about interest rates on mortgages, mortgage rates not coming down anytime soon. It was an unpopular opinion at the time. Rates were, 5%, 5.5% last year. They were under 5% a few years ago. And when they started creeping up, 5, 5.5, 6, 6.5, people said, oh, that's crazy. The rates are too high. I expect 3% on my mortgage. I'm going to wait for them to come down. And we said otherwise. Look, we don't have a crystal ball. We're not doing things by just magic 8-ball predictions. We're looking at the data, at the facts. And at the time, we said very clearly, you can see, here's a screenshot of one of our videos, that mortgage rates are going to go to 10%. And 7, 8% is, people got to look back at that and say that was low. That was a low interest rate. 10% is going to be the new normal. Probably in 2025, it'll hit 10%. And you can rewind the tape on all of our videos. In all of our videos, we even tell you, bookmark this, put it on your calendar for May of 2025, and see if we're right. If we're wrong, it's again we're not predicting the stock market, but it's very likely that's going to happen because the data and the facts point in that direction. You can draw a line on a map and say mortgage rates will be 10% in a couple years. Well, now a few months later, Wall Street Journal has the article, why 8% mortgages aren't crazy. You could have had this news 5-6 months ago without having to subscribe to the Wall Street Journal. Look, we're not saying we're magic. It's just reading the news and saying things that are unpopular. Nobody wants to know that their mortgage rate is going to be 10% if you're not a homeowner. People already have houses. Doesn't matter. Your rate is whatever you originally signed up for. It's not going to change your existing mortgage. But people who in 2020 or 21, when the rates started going up to 4.5%, 5%, 5.5%, and house prices went up, they said, oh, wait a minute, I'm going to stop, back up, and I'm going to call a timeout, and I'm going to wait for things to come down, house prices and mortgage rates. Well, now it's obviously they didn't come back down, they went up. So now if they're at 7.5%, which they are today, people are saying, well, now it's really high, I'm going to wait for it to come down. It's called buy low, sell high, not wait for it to go higher and then buy. Mortgage rates are going to be 10%. And there's two reasons why. We've covered it before. First of all, that's the normal rate. If you go back in history, 30, 40, 50 years, that's always where it hovered, 7.5 to 9%. And the mortgage rates are set by the Federal Reserve rate plus a margin. The Federal Reserve rate had been basically 1.5 for many years in the last decade. So the mortgage companies tack on maybe a 1.5 to 2% profit margin. So now that puts your mortgage rate at 3%, 3.5. That's where it was. Well, Federal Reserve is creeping up their rate. 1% is an artificially low rate. There's no way that the Federal Reserve can sustain that in the long run. So now it's up to 3.5, 4%. There's every indication the Federal Reserve is going to have to bring their mortgage, their discount rate to 5.5%, maybe even 6%. Well, you might say, well, 5.5 plus 2, that only is 7.5 for the mortgage company. Well, the mortgage companies are going to have to start marking these rates up higher than 2 percentage points. The reason why is because when you sell fewer mortgages, you have to make more on each one to pay your bills. It's simple, business 101. They're selling a lot less mortgages. Fewer homes are being sold. Nobody's refinancing, although a few are. We talked about that yesterday. So mortgage companies, in order to keep the lights on, keep employees, keep their rent paid, their mortgage paid on their commercial building, they have to make more on each mortgage. Only way to do that is to jack up the spread. So if the Federal Reserve is at 5.5 or 6, you might have to add on 3 or 4% margin to make the numbers work. Well, there's your 10%. What would this possibly have saved you? Well, if you bought a house, forget about the price, even if the price didn't go up. If you bought a house, and median priced home of about $440,000, in 2021, 2 years ago, and you got a 5.5% mortgage rate, your payment's going to be about $2,500. If you waited and you buy that same house for the same price, and you now have a mortgage rate of 8.5%, your mortgage payment is going to be about $3,300. That's $800 more. That's $10,000 a year. That's huge. So that's going to add up over time. And if you don't go by emotions, like I got to wait for it to come down, and you go by the facts, you can actually make some good decisions to save money. Look, this isn't about trying to make anybody feel bad, but if the rates are now 7.5 and they're going to go to 10, you still have an opportunity to save 2.5% interest for the rest of your mortgage on a home purchase. We don't have any skin in the game. We're not mortgage companies. We're not real estate. We're not making any money off this. It's just trying to see what the future is. Plus, what's the harm? If you buy a house and the rate is 7.5% today, and the rates go down, let's say everybody's wrong, the rates go back down to 5, you can refinance. You don't have to keep your 7.5 if it goes down. If it goes up, you get to keep it. Home prices certainly aren't going to go down. There's still way fewer homes than is needed to house all the people. That's why there's a lot of people that are unhoused. That's why there's a lot of people that are not, they can't find an apartment to rent because there's not enough. People that are in apartments want to buy a house. So home prices aren't going down. If the mortgage rate is keeping you from doing it, and like we've said, our motto is buy the cheapest house you can stand. If the payment is too high and the reason you don't want to buy is because it's too much, buy the cheapest house you can stand. It's better than an apartment where you might get kicked out, your rent's going to get jacked up, or buying later and having a higher mortgage payment. Look, this is one person's opinion. I know you have an opinion about this. Put it in the comments below. Let us know what you think about where rates are going, because now that official big-time media, Wall Street Journal, says 8% mortgage rates aren't crazy, now people that for the last year and a half said, well, I got to wait for it to go back down, rates are too high at 5.5 or 6, might be starting to sink in a little bit. And if 8% isn't crazy, 10% is certainly, they kind of soften you up for the blow a little bit with this. What do you think is going to happen if rates are 10% and house prices don't come down? You buy a house then that'll be $500,000, you're going to be paying $5,000 a month for a mortgage, plus tax and insurance. A $500,000 house at 10% is about $5,000 a month, plus pet tax, insurance, all the other fees. Where if you buy that same house today, maybe it's $440 at 7.5%, maybe you pay $3,300. You could be saving $1,500 a month. Now that is contingent on the fact that you can find a house, you can get approved, you have a down payment, but there's ways to scare that together too. You can use a low down payment program. Again, buy the cheapest house you can stand. It might need work, it might need little paint over time, you might need to use some sweat equity, some elbow grease, but it's better than the alternative of throwing $1,000 a month out the window by having a higher priced house, or a mortgage rate that is higher than what it is today, and that's permanent. If it keeps going up, you're not going to get any lower than what you have. If it goes down, you can refinance. Again, I know you all have opinions about this. Let's hear what you have to say, and let your other viewers hear what you have to say too.